Energy.
Live from Waterford and Dungarvan, this is Waterford at 1 News.
Good afternoon, I'm Sinead Ajerme. Today's top stories: a Waterford family doctor says GP practices remain open for business. A former Waterford senior hurler's returned from New Zealand to answer the call from medical personnel. A Waterford woman living in northern Italy has appealed to people in Ireland not to become complacent. And in sport, the Irish Examiner says Waterford would have 4 hurling all-stars if they were picked today. A Waterford GP fears that people are sitting at home after suffering strokes and other serious illnesses. Dermot Nolan believes people are not presenting with serious conditions because of COVID-19. He's appealing to people to phone their GP if they've any concern. The Tramore-based GP says their practice has been relatively quiet.
People have got this idea, there is a concept or a perception out there that GP practices are closed for business and not seeing anybody. And I think this is the worry, this is what we're afraid of. We think that people are sitting at home with strokes or getting heart attacks and afraid even to contact the GP because they feel that we're so overwhelmed by this COVID that we have no time for anything else except COVID. And that is incorrect.
He says the hospital have noticed it too.
The paediatric department, they normally diagnose, unfortunately, 1 or 2 children with diabetes every week, and they're not seeing any of these kids presenting into the hospital. Even some of the surgeons are wondering where are all the appendixes and the gallbladders. They're not seeing them at the moment. And the fear is, we don't know, is that they're sitting at home, and the worry is that in a couple of weeks' time, the repercussions of this are going to come back, and these patients are going to be presenting a lot sicker, a lot unwell, with delayed diagnosis and more serious complications of their delayed diagnosis.
A Waterford TD says the arrival of a mobile mortuary at University Hospital Waterford shows how serious coronavirus is. The temporary storage facility arrived on site on Tuesday. Sinn Féin's David Culnan says it's not something you like to see happening.
Listen, obviously it's not good news to hear that there is a mobile mortuary coming, because it shows that more people are going to die because of this virus. We're seeing the numbers of people die increase. It's mainly people who are of an older age and people with underlying conditions, although not exclusively. It shows that this virus is a real danger. It kills people.
There's ongoing concern about the amount of testing being done here as the number of coronavirus cases continues to rise. There are now 3,447 confirmed cases and 85 people have died. There are 29 clusters in nursing homes across the country. This means at least 3 people are affected within a setting. Director of the National Virus Reference Laboratory, Dr. Cillian de Gascon, says they're working on getting more of the reagent needed for the COVID tests.
It's certainly disappointing from our perspective, but it doesn't really change our plan in the context of building up to where we want to be, which is up to 15,000 tests a day by the end of the month. So I suppose with any new system that you're putting in place, there's always going to be a couple of stumbles or hiccups along the road, but so we're certainly behind where we intended to be. We're at about 1,500 tests a day at the moment, where we thought we would be at around 5,000.
Former Waterford senior hurler Dr. Tom Devine has returned from New Zealand to answer the call from the HSE for medical personnel to help out during the coronavirus crisis. Tom and 5 others are now in isolation at his father's house in Waterford. He told Damien Tiernan on Daysha today that they hope to be recruited soon.
There's 5 of us here, and we're all in the same position, that we're all looking to get a job as a first year SHO in Waterford Hospital. So we all have interviews today, Skype interviews, one after the other. So we're going to set up a laptop in one of the rooms and just run in and out, I suppose, in interviews. So I'm not sure how many of us they can take on, but we're all hoping to get one.
A Waterford woman living in northern Italy has appealed to people in Ireland not to become complacent. Catherine Walsh-Padovani is living in Reggio Emilia, which is located between Parma and Modena. The teacher is spending her 6th week in lockdown.
We haven't even reached our peak yet, and this is after being on shutdown for weeks. So Ireland, you're doing the right thing. Stay at home. I know you have this 2-kilometre rule, but don't even go out. Don't go out if you don't have to. Because A, you're putting yourself at risk. B, you're putting your family at risk. And C, you're putting the people who have to be in the front line, who have to stay work in supermarkets, etc. You're putting them at risk. Don't go unnecessarily just to get out of the house.
Catherine says she had to drop off groceries to her neighbours who were diagnosed with coronavirus.
I managed to get gloves, but masks, it's absolutely impossible to get masks. And to be honest, if there are masks available, it should be for the people who work in hospitals, because my student, her boyfriend, he's working in a triage tent and they don't have masks. So if there are masks, they should go to them. But I mean, for me, it affected me very personally that my next door neighbours, 2 or 3 days before they were infected, our kids were outside playing together. So obviously that was playing on my mind. Now he's in his 3rd week and he's feeling much better.
The Taoiseach says the restrictions announced last Friday may go well beyond the initial 2-week period. He made the comments as he launched a new community initiative to support those who can't leave their home. Casey O'Riordan reports.
On Friday we were asked to stay at home with few exceptions, while over 70s and vulnerable people were asked to cocoon. Taoiseach Simon Coveney this morning launched the community call to support people who can't leave their homes. The partnership of national and local government and the community and voluntary sector will be available in every town, village and city across the country.
The people who will be leaving a box on your doorstep with provisions will be people who've been vetted and people who are connected with a trusted system.
Rural Affairs Minister Michael Ring says thousands of people have already volunteered to help.
8,500 people volunteered last week. That's exactly what we're at today, trying to coordinate that. If people need help, the volunteer centres will be able to get the people that's required.
The initiative will coordinate volunteers with requests for assistance, and there will be 31 community call offices nationwide. Casey O'Riordan at Government Buildings.
Waterford's John Cummins says he doesn't know when the new Seanad will sit. The Fine Gael councillor was elected to the Seanad yesterday, securing the second highest first preference votes on the Labour panel. Counting of votes is expected to continue until tomorrow. John Cummins says he's looking forward to working with Waterford's 4 other Oireachtas members.
We all know that Waterford only has 4 TDs, so having an additional Oireachtas member in Leinster House standing up and fighting for Waterford's interests can only be a positive thing. So I'll work constructively with the 4 TDs that have been elected for Waterford, and look, there's going to be a lot of work to be done when we get out the other side of this crisis in terms of obviously rebuilding our economy, our local economy, our national economy, and it's going to take everybody working together to be able to achieve that, so I certainly won't be found wanting in that regard.
A Waterford school's given their science goggles and Easter eggs, which are to be used for their annual Easter raffle, to University Hospital Waterford. Sergeant Dave Butler from Community Policing Waterford delivered the donation from St Angela's Secondary School to UHW General Manager Grace Rothwell. School Principal Bernadette McGlynn said their hard-working Parent School Advisory Committee were in the process of organising the raffle, and they were delighted to deliver all of their Easter eggs to UHW as a thank you for the wonderful work they're doing. All their science goggles have also been donated to the emergency department. A Waterford auctioneer says they were surprised at the interest in an online auction of a number of city apartments. There were 6 bidders for the 6 top floor apartments at the recent auction. John Rowan says it shows confidence in the market in these uncertain times.
To 6 apartments in Osier Park, there was a guideline of 360. We were a bit sceptical about it, but we had maybe 8-9 people who registered their interest in it. It opened at 380 and eventually sold for 580. Which was a fantastic result. We had interest both local and nationally, and we were delighted with the outcome. And in these tough times, it's good to see that there is still interest in property and that there are people out there wanting to invest.
A director of the Waterford Spree Festival says they're continuing preparations to host it in August. TV Honan says while the Spree studios have been closed, their focus is now planning the logistics online. He says contingency plans are also being developed to ensure that Spree Festival will run in 2020.
Just in case for any reason this extends a little bit longer than any of us anticipate, but I can absolutely categorically say now that Spree Festival will happen in 2020, and at the moment we're planning that it will be in its usual start on August bank holiday weekend.
WLR Sport, Ireland's local station of the year.
Starting with Gaelic Games, where Waterford would have 4 hurling all-stars if they were picked today. That's according to Irish Examiner GA correspondent John Fogarty. They are Stephen O'Keefe, who's described as the in-form goalkeeper in the country, Conor Prunty, who was made vice-captain at the age of 22, Jamie Barron, looking like he's close to his outstanding form of 3 seasons ago, and Stephen Bennett, who from the opening win over Cork looks to have accepted the extra responsibility now placed upon him as a leader of the attack, along with Boric Manny. In golf, organisers of Golf's Open Championship have scotched reports that this year's event is cancelled. An official statement has been released to say they're assessing their options, but postponement has not been ruled out. Chief Executive of the R&A, Martin Slumbers, says they're working to find a solution as soon as they can. The Masters at Augusta and the PGA Championship have already been cancelled due to the coronavirus pandemic. And in horse racing, it's hoped the Grand National will be staged this winter after the Ferryhouse and Punchestown festivals were cancelled. The national hunt season is over and Irish racing intends to resume once public health allows, with a month of flat racing possibly behind closed doors. Meanwhile, it's understood the UK Jockey Club has placed 400 staff on furlough leave. WLR asking you to stay at home. Our next bulletin is at